There were two things that overshadowed the Super Bowl outcome. One was Rihanna's performance, and the second one was Damar Hamlin's jacket. Let me read you a social media post. And I quote, "This is Damar Hamlin, the young man who recently suffered cardiac arrest on the football field. This is the jacket he wore today at the Super Bowl game. He has no problem mocking Jesus publicly, and Christians will still come to his defense. And they will not warn him that he will die in his sin if he does not repent and turn to Jesus Christ." Interesting. But where it stops being interesting and it becomes repulsive is in the comments section. We go from warning, and I use that word loosely, to outright condemning and being hypocritical of an individual that none of us has met in person, has had a conversation with, knows nothing about his beliefs or his background or upbringing. In this episode of Essential Discourse with Bruce Smith, I want to talk about a condemning, hypocritical mindset.
You're listening to Essential Discourse with Bruce Smith. This is the podcast that examines the perplexities of real life from a holistic perspective. Bruce is committed to delivering honest and crucial dialogue that is transformative, and with his guests, will not only identify problems, but also bring forward solutions that are relevant, restorative, reasonable, and reliable. Thanks for listening. Let's return to the podcast. Here's your host, Bruce Smith.
Hello and welcome to the Essential Discourse with Bruce Smith. I am Bruce Smith, your host, and as we mentioned in the prelogue, we are going to talk about a condemning and hypocritical mindset. These are things that have plagued humanity since the beginning of humanity. Damar Hamlin, for those of you who are unaware, and I find it hard that you would be unaware, but let me give you the backdrop. This young man suffered cardiac arrest on the football field in the Cincinnati versus Buffalo game a few weeks back. This man literally lost his life on the football field, and we all watched it. For those of us who were watching that game, we saw that happen in real life. It's reported that he had CPR performed on him for 9 minutes on the field. They got him into the ambulance, got him to the hospital, where they had to perform CPR for an additional amount of time. Damar was in a coma for a couple of days. He woke up, able to speak, able to recognize where he was, the people around him, and has since made a remarkable recovery. This is nothing short of a miracle. This is nothing short of people being in the right place at the right time, fulfilling their purpose and exercising the training that they have undergone. And who could have orchestrated all of that but Abba Father, God? Regardless to whether you call him God, Yahweh, Allah, Yahshua, whatever you call him, no one could have orchestrated that but God. Fast forward to Super Bowl Sunday. Damar is walking into the Super Bowl. He is greeted by the paramedics, the emergency response teams who helped him in his time of need. But he had on a jacket. He had on a jacket that people immediately offended by, tremendously offended by. And the jacket, in my personal opinion, I would not have worn that jacket. I wouldn't have worn that jacket because, one, it's it's not my taste. It's not my style. 2, I would have had some reservations about, the figures, the animations up on the cross. That's me personally. But he wore the jacket. And there was outcry about him wearing the jacket. And it came from former football players such as Adrian Peterson. It came across social media, and it just blew up into this thing that would have been best handled privately. Instead, folk chose to address it publicly. Adrian Peterson scolded him publicly on his social media platform of choice, which was Twitter or Instagram, one of those two. And basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, you ought to be thanking God that you are alive instead of mocking him. You need to do better. I'm paraphrasing what Adrian Peterson said. But it's the post that I read in the prelogue, those comments. I don't have a problem with the post, right? I don't have a problem with the post. That is this person's opinion, and they're free to share that opinion. But it's the comments of this post where it went from being interesting to me to just being outright disgusting, repulsive. There are people in this post, in the comment sections, who literally stated, I regret praying for Damar Hamlin. These are people who identify as Christians, who said that I regret praying for Damar Hamlin because he wore this jacket. How dare he? It is some of the most ridiculous stuff I've read in quite a while. Listen, I've been a Christian most of my life. I've prayed many of prayers for many of people, to include myself. I've prayed many of prayers for a particular outcome. And as I've grown and matured, I've stopped praying for particular outcomes to the only outcome that is acceptable in my view. And if that view is that outcome is that the Lord's will be done concerning this situation or that person. That's my prayer. And for these individuals who are in this comment section, and there are over 3,000 comments in this post, who say that I regret praying for this individual. I have never, in all the prayers that I've ever prayed, regardless to what a person does after I pray a prayer, regardless to what I've done after I prayed a prayer, I have never once regretted praying a prayer. Not once. Not once. And it kind of makes you wonder, who are these individuals serving? What God are they serving? You know, it's kind of like when you look at history, when you look in history of recent history, as a matter of fact, you have a certain group of so-called Christians, evangelicals, who have made every excuse in the book for a particular person, for all of his misdeeds, all of his misdoings, all of his wrong that has been proven wrong and that he has not shown any remorse for doing, right? He's an adulterer. He is a person who cheats people out of what is rightfully theirs as a so-called business person. He's a liar, right? He is an instrument used to incite emotions of people to commit crime, to do bodily harm to other individuals. But these evangelicals, up until recently, they made every excuse in the book for this guy. In fact, there was a prominent so-called religious leader claimed that this individual was raised up by God and that she knew that he was not a racist despite his past behavior and current behaviors dictating otherwise. And I just looked at that and I was like, I don't know what God you talking to, but it ain't the one that I follow. It ain't the one whom I serve. But then you turn around, and when I look at the profiles of these people who are saying this stuff about Damar Hamlin's jacket and his character because he wore a jacket, and his demonization because he wore this jacket, they all look the same to me. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. But that's what I see when I look at these profiles of these individuals who are saying this. And I'm not concerned about the atheists who are on this thread, or the non-believers, or those who just believe in science. I'm not concerned with what they are saying. What struck me as odd is that these are people who self-identify as Christians, as believers, who are out here saying the most awful, hypocritical, condemning stuff that you could possibly think of concerning one incident involving a particular individual that they have no idea who he is, what he's made of, his mental mind state, his upbringing, or his belief system. But yet and still, you're sending him to hell as if your name is on the deed to hell. I don't know one person on the face of the earth who owns a heaven or who owns a hell. I don't know anybody with the keys to heaven or the keys to hell, as if to say, oh yeah, you're going to one or the other. So why do we make these condemning statements towards an individual that you have absolutely nothing, you know nothing about? All you know is he wore a jacket that you didn't like, and now you regret praying for him. Now he's mocking Jesus. Now he's an abomination. And ladies and gentlemen, this is not what Christ came to earth to do. John 3:16-17, for God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. 17 says, God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but through him, the world might be saved. That's what Jesus came into the world for. If you believe in Jesus as the Christ, that was his mission. That was his mission. And he left some specific instructions for his disciples, his believers, his followers to follow, to carry out a standard. And that standard is this: love God with your whole heart, your whole soul, your whole mind, and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's the standard. The standard wasn't to judge people and condemn them. The standard wasn't to be hypocritical and act as if you've never made a poor decision. The standard wasn't to get on social media and berate an individual you know absolutely nothing about. And we're in a sad state. We're in a sad state in America as it relates to Christianity, true Christianity, because those who claim to be Christians in word only, who claim to be believers in word only, they're making the most noise. They're making the most noise, and therefore they have the most influence over those who are seeking to be better human beings. It's hard. It's hard to tell a millennial or younger, hey man, come on down to the church, or come on down to Sunday school or Bible study. It'll help you. When they have witnessed over and over and over again, people who are supposed to be believers, people who are supposed to be Christians, do and say the most outlandish, evil stuff that one can imagine. It's hard to have an impact on these people as a true believer when there's so many fakers and pretenders out here being louder, being more boisterous, being more foul, being all this stuff out here in the public eye that represents Christianity at best poorly. And it just doesn't give Christianity a bad rep. It gives God a bad rep. You're supposed to be representing God, representing Jesus. But it seems to me that most of these people are just representing themselves. And that's a problem. And I want to end this by saying there's blood on our hands. There's blood on each and every last one of us. And we need to get it right. Because you can't sit here and say, I mind the business that pays me, or they ain't got nothing to do with me, and be a believer and be a true believer. Because when you see folk who are claiming to be believers, you don't necessarily have to say anything. You just have to be who you were made to be. And many of us, we cower down. We don't stand up. We don't stand up and be that example that people are looking for. We don't stand up and let the love of Christ manifest itself outwardly from within us. Some of us haven't matured enough to say, you know what? I could respond in this way, but I'm going to respond in the way that Christ would have me to respond, the way that my belief system would have me to respond. Everything ain't about catching them hands. Everything ain't about putting a hole through your chest that somebody can see through. That in and of itself is foolishness. We have to choose whose side are we on. And there's no one leg over the fence, no straddling the fence. You're either on one side or you're on the other side. No, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You got to choose. Because that is the only way. That is the only way that we can convince others who are in need of charity, who are in need of grace, who are in need of hope, that there is hope, that there is grace to be given, and that there is charity to be received. We've got to be committed to what we said that we were committed to. We can't allow these individuals who stand behind pulpits and tell their congregations to arm themselves because one political opponent, the guy that they weren't for, got elected into the White House. Arm themselves, get all the ammunition that you can get because a certain type of people are going to come and take your country away from you. That's foolishness. That is absolute foolishness. And stop being so hypocritical and realize that you are not where you were. You have not always been where you are right now. You've made some mistakes. And if you learn from the mistakes, you have become wiser so you can help guide people who are about to make those mistakes or who have already made those mistakes. You are a testament to the power of God. So let's live that out. Let's stop being so critical, so hypocritical, so ready to cast people into condemnation. We don't have the ability to condemn anybody. When you really think about it, when you really know the truth, we do not have the ability to condemn anyone. But we do have the ability to influence people to condemn themselves. And that's why suicide is at an all-time high. That is why crime is at an all-time high, because people have no hope. People are not showing grace. People are not showing mercy. People are not showing compassion. That is why we are in the predicament that we are in. because no one or very few of us are showing the love of Christ to our brothers and our sisters. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're part of LGBTQ. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're a woman. I don't care if you're a man. I don't care if you're white. I don't care if you got polka dots. I don't care if you got alopecia. I don't care if you got a head full of hair. I don't care about any of that stuff. I care about what Christ cares about, and that is your soul. And far too many of us are concerned with the exterior stuff rather than the interior stuff. These are souls, guys. These are souls that we are dealing with. These are souls that we are either strengthening or that we are destroying. Do yourself a favor and just reflect on your life, where you were, who helped you get to where you are now, and who's going to help you get to where you're going. And that answer is Christ. That answer is God, regardless of what you call him. Yahweh, Jehovah, Allah, God, regardless of what you call him, he is God. He is I am that I am. And he is the only one who can give you the ability, who can give you the resources, the means to reach your full potential. Be in service to each other. Let's not be a hindrance to each other. Let's be in service to each other because we need each other. A lot of people like to say, I don't need nobody. Use a lie. Use a lie. We all need someone. We all need something from someone. We might not need you every step of the way, but there's a process to this thing, and you have what I need for this particular process. So let's be in service to each other. Let's stop condemning each other. Let's stop being so hypocritical, holier than thou. Let's just be real with each other. And just maybe when we do that, we can start healing as individuals and as a people. Just maybe we can see the changes that we've been longing for. If we show grace, if we show compassion, if we show empathy, if we show the love of Christ that emanates from within us, out of us.
This concludes this episode of Essential Discourse with Bruce Smith. We hope that your perspective has been elevated, that you have been edified, equipped, and encouraged as a result of listening today. If you found value in this episode, please recommend this podcast to your friends, families, associates, and colleagues. You can accomplish this by linking the podcast or podcast episode to your personal social media page. Your feedback and questions are welcomed. Please utilize the Facebook business page, Essential Discourse with Bruce Smith, or the Facebook group page, Essential Discourse Podcast Community, to provide your feedback. Additionally, please feel free to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on your favorite podcast streaming app. For additional information about the podcast, the host, guests, and more, please visit www.edpshow.com. Until next time, remember, it's okay to extend yourself a measure of grace. We learn to grow. We grow to mature. We mature to be perfected. Thanks again for listening to Essential Discourse with Bruce Smith.